Right. We would call it L rays at that
L
time.
rays.
Right,
Okay.
1953.
That's a good year. That was a very good year.
Imagine a group so enduring that their career spans 6 decades, outlasting nearly all their peers. This story is one of history's most influential yet underrated vocal groups. But there is a lot that people don't know about the Dells. They were not just another vocal group, but pioneers who seamlessly transitioned from doo-wop to soul, perfecting a style that would inspire legends like The Temptations, the O'Jays, and even Boys II Men. However, their end wasn't worthwhile. What was the secret behind their longevity? And why did they end so badly? Early years and formation of the group. Although there were many vocal groups in their era, the Dells outdid their peers and remained together for over 50 years. The group stands as one of the greatest music groups of all time. Their story began in 1952 in the small town of Harvey, Illinois, just south of Chicago. The group started with original members: Marvin Jr., Johnny Funches, Vern Allison, Mickey McGill, and Lucius McGill. They began as teenagers singing doo-wop harmonies for fun after convincing one of their members' mother, Marvin Jr., who was very religious and prohibited certain kinds of music in the house. However, she did allow them to use the woodshed, where they listened to many great harmony groups like the Clovers, the Moonglows, the Five Keys, and the Dominoes. This gave them the idea to start their group. The group started singing in their neighborhoods and performing at small parties. Each member brought a unique sound to the group. From Marvin's deep baritone to Johnny's soaring falsettos, they created a unique sound that set them apart from their peers at the time. Despite this, it took them decades to perfect their harmony. However, the group was determined, so they kept practicing, taking on different stages, from talent shows to parties, and even local ice cream shops, where they later got the idea to record their songs. This decision made them move to South Michigan Avenue, where they met Leonard Chess, the owner of Chess Records, and asked him for a chance to record in his studio. Surprisingly, Chess gave them a chance. They recorded their first song, Christine, with another song, Darling I Know, in 1954 with Chess Records. However, the record failed to gain traction, and they were soon dropped. Marvin Jr. admitted in a much later interview that Darling I Know was one of the worst songs ever recorded. Even though the song was not their best track, it was their first step into the music industry. They had been struggling and needed a fresh start. The music industry was brutal, especially for black artists in the 1950s. Segregation and racial discrimination were constant obstacles. Some hotels even refused to give them rooms, and some venues sometimes refused to pay them. To make matters worse, they often had to enter through the back doors of clubs despite being the main attraction. Yet determined to make it, they found a new opportunity at VJ Records, a music label owned by Vivian Carter and Jimmy Bracken. Vivian had an idea. She told them, "You need to change your name." So the group put out different names in a hat and picked one, and that's how they became the Dells. Their big moment came on Vivian's label when they recorded Oh What a Night in 1956. This song became their first major hit and later became their signature hit when they re-recorded it in 1969 with fresh arrangements, marking a turning point in their career and the beginning of their decades-long career. Vivian loved it, and soon, the whole country did too. The song was so big that it brought the Dells to the famous Apollo Theater. The Apollo Theater was considered the gateway to show business. If an artist performed there and failed, they would be paid off and sent home with no second chances, which meant an artist would have to be great from the start. However, when the Dells made it, they blew the audience away and were immediately accepted. Performing at the Apollo proved they had what it took to succeed in the music industry. But just as their fame and career were rising, tragedy struck. In 1959, while touring with Ray Charles, the Dells were involved in a serious car accident on the Ohio Turnpike. Their station wagon had a tire blowout. Johnny Funches, who was driving the wagon at the time, lost control, and Michael McGill was badly injured, which resulted in him spending 6 months in the hospital. Even though the other members were not hurt, the accident derailed their momentum. Life became hard for the group. They were not getting paid enough for their music and were struggling. When they returned home, they dissolved the group and went their separate ways temporarily. When Michael McGill left the hospital, he went back home and decided to marry his high school sweetheart, Rose. Johnny Funches and Marvin Jr. got factory jobs. Vernon Barksdale tried to stay in the music industry, but it wasn't the same. The group decided to reunite. The accident had brought them closer and made their bond stronger. They felt even more determined, and by 1961 the group was back. Still, despite their success, the Dells were yet at another crossroads by the mid-1960s. After a decade of struggling with inconsistent success, the group needed to evolve or fade away. So, the Dells started shifting toward a richer and more sophisticated sound. This reinvention defined their legacy and placed them among the greatest vocal groups in R&B history. They got a big opportunity when they auctioned to be backup singers for the legendary Dinah Washington. At the time, Dinah wanted a new group to travel with her on tour, and when she heard the Dells sing, she fell in love with their voices and knew they were special. But there was a problem. During this time, Johnny Funches decided to leave the group. He shared with the group that he needed to stay home and care for his family, and could not go on the road. Johnny's decision to stay back was devastating to the group. At first, they were frustrated and angry. He was a crucial part of their vocal blend, and without him, the group was not just complete, but later on, they understood his decision. Family was important, and they could see that Johnny wanted to do right by himself, being the only group member with children at the time. However, filling his role was not easy. It took a while, and the group went through several falsetto artists, looking for the right sound to complete their group, but none of the people they interviewed for the role had Johnny Funches' unique voice. The group was about to give up when, one night, they met a former member of another legendary doo-wop group, Johnny Carter, from the Flamingos, at a bar musicians loved to hang out at the time. They approached him, and after they had shared some drinks, they decided to do a little vocal test in the bar. Johnny Carter's smooth falsetto and vocal versatility were impressive and perfectly complemented Marvin Jr.'s deep baritone. And just like that, the Dells had found their final member. They told Johnny they needed him to complete their group and were leaving the next day. Johnny hit a few notes with them, and it was clear he still had that unique sound. This move would prove to be one of the most significant in their career, and Johnny Carter eventually became one of the few artists to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice for his performance in both the Flamingo and the Dells. With the band complete, they hit the road with the great jazz and R&B singer Dinah Washington. This lineup, Marvin Jr., Vern Allison, Mickey McGill, Chuck Barksdale, and Johnny Carter, went on to define their golden years. Reinvention and the soul era. The Dells recorded major changes under Dinah's mentorship. Her impact could be felt in their jazz tunes' refined harmonies and advanced techniques. This added a level of vocal precision that made them unique and different from their contemporaries. As a perfectionist, the team found her both inspiring and challenging. Often, she would get mad and fire people from her band, only to bring them back the next day. She was tough, and that toughness and perfectionism drove the team to excellence. Washington's influence helped the group transition from their doo-wop roots to a more mature, emotionally driven soul style and become better musicians. She taught them stage presence and vocal skills and helped turn them into jazz artists. When they gave their first jazz performance, people were surprised at how well they could sing. The biggest highlight of their performance came when the Four Freshmen, a famous jazz group at the time, applauded them. Hired and fired by Ray Charles. After working with Dinah Washington, another great opportunity presented itself in 1966. They were chosen as the opening act for the legendary Ray Charles. Ray Charles was one of the biggest stars in the music world then. Touring with him was an honor, but it wasn't easy either. Ray Charles was strict about everything and hardly talked to people. Instead, it was his road manager that handled everything. However, even though the Dells didn't get to know Ray Charles personally, they had learned a lot from watching him, just like they did with Dinah. One of their most unforgettable moments was performing at Carnegie Hall in New York. It was a big venue, and they weren't sure how the audience would react, but they blew everyone away when they went on stage. The crowd gave them 5 standing ovations, undoubtedly one of their career's greatest nights. However, one night while they were still on tour, the Dells were performing, and after the performance, Ray Charles's road manager pulled them aside and asked them, "When do you guys want to leave the show?" The group was confused and could not respond. His manager came back and gave them an announcement. "We want to drop you off somewhere." Like every other good thing with a devastating ending, The Dells had an ominous feeling that they were being fired even before they were told. But their confusion deepened because they couldn't understand why. They had just received a standing ovation from the crowd. The crowd came alive when they sang. Their voices were immaculate, so what could have gone wrong? The disappointment hit like a ton of bricks. But after their success, Ray Charles congratulated them, sealing his confidence in their talents. Being kicked out of Ray Charles's tour became the fuel they needed, and the Dells became even more determined to make an independent name for themselves. They needed to stand out. However, the shift to the soul and jazz sound wasn't immediate or easy. The music industry was changing rapidly, and while groups like the Temptations and the Four Tops had already embraced the soul movement, the Dells needed a distinctive edge to stand out. That edge came when they met producers Bobby Miller and Charles Stepney, who helped them reshape their sound into something extraordinary. The Bobby Miller era. When the gifted producer at Cadet Records saw the Dells' raw talent, he encouraged them to push their vocal range and take on more challenges. This led the group to blend jazz elements into their harmonies and develop dramatic and orchestral sounds that elevated their music and sound beyond the standards of R&B. Under Miller's guidance, the group recorded their first breakthrough soul album, There Is, which was released in 1968 and established their ability to deliver deeply emotional ballads with tight harmonies. It was their album Love Is Blue, released in 1969, that earned them a place in soul history. The album remains a classic today, blending golden covers and original compositions. This album was not just another piece of jazz music, it was proof of their talent and versatility. Their I Can Sing a Rainbow Love Is Blue version became a fan favorite. The blend of pop, jazz, and soul drew the attention of a broad audience. But this success didn't come without personal struggles. As the group climbed the records charts, tensions began to grow. They had to work longer hours in the studio, endure grueling tour schedules, and make some personal sacrifices. For Marvin Jr., the pressure came with leading the vocal arrangements. Meanwhile, Johnny Carter found himself dealing with health issues that later became serious. But despite these struggles, the group remained remarkably stable compared to many of their peers. But beneath the success, a devastating loss loomed on the horizon. In the early 1970s, Dinah Washington's death shook the group. Losing their mentor was a painful reminder of the fleeting nature of success, which pushed the group to work even harder and eventually land some of their greatest recordings. Still, during the 1970s, the group found themselves at another turning point. The music industry was changing once again into funk and disco sounds. The Dells were still resolute in their music and continued experimenting with the new sound while staying true to their soulful roots. It was during this period that they recorded some of their critically acclaimed albums like Freedom Means, which was released in 1972 and featured the hit single, The Love We Had, Stays on My Mind, a song that became one of the defining soul ballads of the decade. However, despite their newfound success in the soul genre, their transition from doo-wop to soul wasn't just a career move, it was a statement. The Dells continued to prove decade after decade that vocal groups didn't have to fade away with changing trends. Instead, they could evolve, grow, and find new ways to connect with their audiences. Peak success and challenges. The Dells had over 40 hit songs in their career. Their big breakthrough came with Bobby Miller's song, There Is. Miller was a talented songwriter who also wrote another major hit for them, which became even bigger when it was re-released in 1968. The song pushed them to new heights. But interestingly, they almost did not record this song. They needed one more song to complete their album then, so they decided to redo Stay in My Corner. When they recorded this song, they wanted to make a powerful moment, so they let Marvin Jr. hold a long note to make it stand out. Marvin held the note for so long that people were amazed. The note became legendary and was noted as one of the longest sustained notes in history, which also made the song Stay in My Corner sell 4 million copies. By the 1970s, the Dells had become one of history's most consistent and influential R&B vocal groups. Their transition from doo-wop to soul helped them gather a wide fan base and continue dominating the charts. However, despite their success, they faced financial struggles, label disputes, and personal challenges that tested their resilience. Despite all these challenges, the group went on to record albums like It Is Like It Was, which had the hit songs Open Up Your Heart and Long Lonely Nights. In 1971, the group once again captured the hearts of many with their album, Freedom Means. The track, Give Your Baby a Standing Ovation, became a certified gold single and reached number 3 on the R&B charts. Released in 1973, the song showcased the Dells' signature blend of vocal smoothness and raw emotion. That same year, they followed up with My Pretending Days Are Over, which won them their spot as a vocal powerhouse. However, while the group enjoyed commercial success, the music industry became more volatile. Despite having already experienced the downfall of VJ Records in the 1960s, by the mid-70s, their longtime record label, Chess Records, was also in decline. Although they wanted to hold on to the label because of their loyalty, their dedication to creating music and evolving sound led them to sign with Mercury Records in 1975, marking a new chapter in their career. Their first release with the label, We Got to Get Our Thing Together, was released in 1975 and produced another hit with the title track, which reached number 17 on the R&B chart. They followed this success up with No Way Back, released in 1976, featuring Slow Motion and They Said It Couldn't Be Done But We Did It, released in 1977, and including Our Love. However, moving from label to label disrupted their momentum. By 1978, the group moved to ABC Records, where they released New Beginnings and the hit single Superwoman. Despite their profound success with these projects, the pressures from the industry started taking a toll on their personal lives. Touring became exhausting, and their financial disputes added further stress, with the group often struggling to earn their fair share. Still, despite these challenges, they continued to push forward, and in 1980, they signed with Chi Sound Records, which was owned by Carl Davis. Under Carl's label, they released their album, I Touched a Dream, in 1980, which brought them back to the R&B charts with the title track reaching number 17. This era also set the stage for one of their biggest cultural moments, their involvement in the 5 Heartbeats. The film was released in 1999 and was directed by Robert Townsend. Initially, it was meant to be a lighthearted comedy about vocal groups. Still, after speaking with the Dells, Townsend realized their story was much deeper, and the film went on to reveal the racism, financial hardships, and personal struggles they endured, which reshaped the movie into a historically rich drama. Their song, A Heart is a House for Love, which was featured in the film, became their first top 20 R&B hit in over a decade, introducing them to a new generation of fans. The song contains deep emotions, strong vocals, and powerful lyrics. It talks about love, struggles, and feelings that everyone can understand. The music, rhythm, and words fit together perfectly, making it a song fans loved the first time they heard it. Even after so many years, people still listen to it, which remains one of their best songs. It was an unexpected full-circle moment. After decades in the industry, the Dells found themselves at the center of an artistic tribute to their legacy. Throughout their career, the group continued to break more records and release chart toppers, giving them 7 gold singles, 25 top 40 hits, and 3 number 1 Billboard R&B hits. Their music inspired future generations, including groups like Boyz II Men, the OJs, and Joe Dacey. In 2004, their contributions were recognized when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, sealing their place in history. During their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, one of the group members, Marvin Jr., spoke from the heart. He said, "We have all of our family here tonight, and next to God, this is the most important thing for us, our family." These words showed how much their family and loved ones meant to them and how much they valued the moment. They had waited several years, and this moment seemed never to come. Having been nominated 9 times before they were finally accepted, many people believed they should have been honored much earlier. As they stood on the stage, tears filled their eyes. They felt so many emotions, happiness, pride, and gratitude. It was a moment they had waited for, and now it was finally happening. But they were not the only people excited for this moment. The audience knew how much the Dells deserved this honor, and to showcase their love and appreciation, they gave them a long-standing ovation. Everyone in the room stood up, clapping and cheering for them. It was a moment of pure respect, and it was clear that the music industry had not forgotten the incredible work the Dells had done over the years. Yet sometimes the world forgets about great artists from the past. Still, the people who grew up listening to the Dells know how special their music was and how revolutionary their era had been, setting the stage for newer groups. Even though they didn't always get the attention they deserved, maybe that was good. Things might have been different if they had become too famous too soon. Maybe their group wouldn't have lasted as long, but because they stayed focused on their music and bond, they kept going strong for over 50 years despite sometimes having arguments. Still, this was common with bands, and it was never anything too serious to split up the group, as they always found a way to work things out. The group's health struggles. The Dells faced many challenges, but one of their most significant was when the group members' health started to decline. Marvin Jr. was faced with diabetes, which led to further complications in his later years. But despite his health drawback, he continued performing for as long as he could, refusing to let his voice fade from the stage. Johnny Funches, the original lead singer when the group started, also got very sick with pneumonia, a severe lung infection, and passed away. Losing him was painful for his family, friends, and fans. His voice was special, and many people still remembered his songs. But the real tragedy struck in 2009 when the group's falsetto master, Johnny Carter, lost his battle with lung cancer at the age of 75. His death was a devastating blow to the group, and the entire music world mourned. Losing Carter was only the beginning of a sorrowful period for the group. Just 4 years later, in 2013, Marvin Jr. passed away at the age of 77 due to complications from kidney failure and heart problems. His death was especially painful, as his voice had defined the Dells' raw emotional depth for decades. When the group's bass singer, Chuck Barksdale, passed away at 84, the group finally ended. Chuck's loss was another heavy blow, as his smooth, deep tones provided the foundation for the group's harmonies. With just Vern Allison and Mickey Michael McGill left to carry the legacy, the group had no choice but to end. The weight of losing their group members who had become family was too much to carry the group on. Nevertheless, their love never faded. They continued to share their stories and ensured their contributions to R&B were never forgotten. Even after the group ended, Dells' influence remained strong. They were not just another vocal group or R&B artists. They were more than that. Their impact on soul and jazz music was so great that they managed to blend doo-wop with jazz and soul sounds, forming a new sound that they became pioneers of and inspired generations of vocalists and musicians. Though many of them have left this world, their music lives on. Songs like "Oh What a Night," "Stay in My Corner," and "The Love We Had," "Stays on My Mind," resonate with audiences, proving that true artistry never fades. The undeniable legacy of the Dells. For over 6 decades, Dells' legacy has been sustained. The group defined R&B harmony, influencing generations of vocal groups that followed. Part of their legacy is contained in their smooth transitions from doo-wop to soul and their ability to reinvent themselves. Yet, despite their immense contributions to music, their story is laced with layers of struggles, pain, and the bittersweet reality of being legends who never fully reaped the rewards of their influence. In addition, their financial struggles plagued them throughout their careers, as was the case with many black artists of their era who were exploited by record labels. Even at the height of their success, they did not earn the wealth their influence should have brought them. But even though they were cheated out of their career earnings, their induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame brought them a particularly special moment because it sealed their place among the greats, affirming that their contributions were as significant as those of the Supremes, the Four Tops, and the Miracles. The same year, they were also inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame. Also, in 2022, the Dells were inducted into the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, further recognizing their groundbreaking career. For over 50 years, the Dells gave their fans amazing music. They were not just a singing group, they were a family. The connection between the group members was deep, and they shared a strong bond that lasted for decades. This was the unique sauce to their music, as the years they had spent blending harmonies and exploring new sounds with the same original group members made their sound even smoother. When they sang, the dedication and love in their voices could be heard, making them one of the greatest R&B groups in history. The story of the Dells is a story of triumph, resilience, and heartbreak. Their journey started like many other success stories, starting with humble beginnings in Harvey, Illinois, harmonizing on street corners. They later became one of the greatest vocal groups in history, leaving an undeniable mark on R&B and soul music.
Their ability to adapt, from doo-wop to soul, jazz-infused ballads, and even funk, showcases their talent and willingness to evolve with the ever-changing music industry. Despite the groundbreaking work they did to attain their success, the group came to an end at some point after 6 decades. Although they ended, their music lives on. Even now, their harmonies perfected through years of consistent practices stand as a testament and a traceable pioneer tract for the new R&B genre. Their journey is both an inspiration and a reminder of the sacrifices that come before and even after success and fame. Though they are no longer with us, their songs ensure that the Dells will never be forgotten.
Today, the Dells' legacy lives on in every group inspired by their influence, and their songs can still stir the soul. Did you know they inspired the 5 Heartbeats movie? Who do you think is today's closest equivalent to the Dells? And what impact do you think they had on modern R&B and soul music? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Before you go, click on the video displayed on your screen.